Now, please give a round of applause for Barry Schrag again. And he's going to be joined on stage by a distinguished group of voices for thought-provoking discussion. Member of the Knesset, Stav Shaffir. Member of the Knesset, Dr. Menachem Shai. Editor-in-Chief for Israel Hayom, Boaz Bismuth. And moderator, journalist, and TV presenter, Miri Michaeli.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is so wonderful to be here in this really heartwarming gathering. And I think we're all here today because we care about the Jewish future. That is why we should all be concerned about the growing gap between American Jews and Israelis and the increasing tension between these two pillars of global Jewry today. And I want to start with you, Barry. Mazel Tov.
Thank you.
On this really great award.
Thank you.
Much deserved.
I wouldn't have showed up if I had known that was going to happen.
We're very glad
Thank
you
you.
showed up. So you invest a lot of time and energy in trying to figure out how to bring Israelis and American Jews together. And I'd like to hear your thoughts about this issue.
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for that tremendously undeserved honor. There are so many people here who have done so much more for the IAC, for the American Jewish community, for
I think
Israel.
he deserves another round of applause,
Yeah,
for sure.
Thank you. First of all, I don't really believe in the bad news. That's for starters. There were a couple of articles in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago that basically were saying American Jewish community is doomed to assimilation. Israelis and American Jews are at each other's throats. The connection between Israel and world Jewry is in danger. All of those things, anti-Semitism is a huge threat, which it is. But I just don't see it like that. I've been a leader in Boston for 31 years. So when people say Reform Jews don't care about Israel, I don't know. I see when AIPAC has a meeting, all the Reform rabbis in Boston and scores, dozens, hundreds of their congregants come out. They're not running away from Israel. They want to be part of Israel. They're desperate to be part of Israel. Inside the heart of every American Jew, every Jew in the world, someplace is this yearning to be part of something bigger. It's a yearning to be part of the Jewish people. This is not starting out at zero as if Jewish identity is already gone and there's nothing in our hearts that binds us together. There's everything in our hearts that binds us together. It's in the data. It's right there. But most of all, it's in this room. There's a wonderful midrash. Moshe is in front of the burning bush, and he asks God, do me a favor, give me a little help here. You're asking me to go to Egypt, the most powerful empire in the world, and free our people. He says, at least, tell me your name. And God says, Eheyeh she'eheyeh. And I think it was Rabbi Sachs who said, what the meaning of that is, I will be what I will be. God is saying, I will be what I will be, but you will determine the outcome. If there's going to be a split in the American Jewish community between Israel and the American Jewish community, Eheyeh she'eheyeh, God will be what God will be. But the people in this room and everyone like them will determine the outcome of this great opportunity that we have.
It's very optimistic. It's good to hear. Boaz, why
Yes.
do American Jews think Israel has to accommodate their views on Aliyah and conversion, despite there not being a majority in parliament for such moves under current state of affairs?
First of all, a personal message or a personal note. For my age, too much emotion. 2 weeks ago with Dr. Edelson, President, the Medal of Freedom. Today we heard, all of us, the speech of the Vice President Pence. Then Governor-elect DeSantis. I mean, I wish I could hear such speeches in Israel. Then, of course, now Barry Price. My age, too much emotion. But you're asking now a question which is very fundamental and very important and really preoccupies us in Israel. And yesterday, while we were preparing this debate, it was a bit vivid, no, Barry, I can say.
It was
very
vivid, yeah.
vivid. It was
Yeah.
very vivid. And we were asked to be very, to make it less vivid. So I sat in a deli a kosher deli. It's still allowed for a Jew to sit in a kosher deli, Orthodox kosher deli. And I prepared, some of my thoughts as an Israeli journalist, Israeli editor-in-chief, what we think of those relationships between Israel and, of course, the Jewish community, not only the Israeli community in the United States, but the Jewish community in the world. So I say that we occasionally see that Israelis and the Jewish community in the US have their disagreements. I mean, that's a fact. US Jews occasionally voice opposition to Israeli laws passed by the Knesset and actions by the government. And Israelis sometimes criticize what US Jews do in America. But there is a bit of historical perspective. Even our greatest prophet, Moses, had to face opposition. Disagreement and conflict are okay, but we cannot let this become confrontation. US Jews and Israel should and always have been complementary. Now, enriching the debate should not be poisoning the debate. Just because Israel does a certain thing doesn't mean Jews in the US should change its overall policy towards Israel. Just because Israel passes certain measures on conversion, the Western Wall or Aliyah, doesn't mean Israel is no longer their second home. We can criticize Israel even from abroad, because Israelis love to debate and are passionate about everything. But let's not make Israel an issue in and of itself. Don't disengage from Israel, don't boycott Israel or its leaders just because of what Israel does. Rather, try to influence it by speaking directly to Israelis and making your case. Don't partner with others who hate Israel just to achieve a tactical victory that will only hurt Israel in the long run. Now, if you're against certain policies, fight against them. But don't fight against Israel. After all, Israel has a right to make decisions that are not popular, just like any other country. Ultimately, it is Israel electorate who will decide where the country is going and where the battle of ideas should never become a war. And if we speak about electorate, I would say here when I'm at the IAC and I see this beautiful Israeli community here in America, how much you're involved and how much you care when we speak about electorate, maybe a member of Knesset, Stav Shaffir, Nachman Shai, it's about time that those friends, Israelis, brothers, should vote too.
For us.
For us, for them.
Thank you, Boaz. Stav, does Israel have the responsibility to help American Jews pursue their agenda?
Hello. First, I really want to thank you all for being here and for staying here to see this panel. And seriously, thank you so much for what you're doing. I want you to know that we don't take it for granted that you care so much for Israel and that you dedicate your time and efforts to continue in defending our security and the security and the justice for the Jewish people all over the world. So thank you very much. I think that part of the parameters for how Israeli leaders should be seen with is how they see and what kind of work they put into taking care of the Jewish people. When I wake up every morning and go to parliament, I think about the security of the Israeli society, our economy, our society, and at the same time, I think about the Jewish people as a whole, because we're all part and we're all connected wherever we are and to whatever stream of Judaism we belong, and the way we choose to practice our culture, our religion, etc. And I think that sometimes we forget how incredibly lucky we are to be born at this time, when for the Jewish people, we're in a golden age. We have our homeland, Israel. We have security. We, after thousands of years, have the personal security and the social and national security to live our life and to practice our religion and our culture the way that we want to do it. And I think that history will not forgive us if we ruin that. History will not forgive us if the politics of incitement and polarization will take over the precious discussion and dialogue that all of us should have with each other. Because all of us, Jewish and Israeli, there aren't people who are more patriotic than others. There aren't traitors and loyalists. We're all part of the same people. We should never, never let this kind of political argument stand in the middle of that precious society and these precious people. And this is something that when I see this happening in my country and when I see it happening here, I think that sometimes some of us forget our mission here. Our mission is to make sure that Jews feel free everywhere. Our mission is that Israel will remain the capital of the Jewish people, where Jewish life can flourish and people can feel free in whatever way they want to practice their life. And our mission is to continue the values of Judaism in the way that Israel lives its life, which means that we take care of the weak, that we work very, very hard to achieve peace, and that we make sure that we can be a free people in our country. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו.
Thank you very much, Stav. Nachman, can Israel win the hearts and minds of American Jews without betraying the will of the Israeli voters?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Miri. First of all, I'd like to thank you all. I've been this country scores of time, but I've never been to IAC conference. It's a very refreshing and encouraging opportunity to see Israelis all around the country coming together, using their resources, and of course, many thanks to the Sheldon and Mary Edelson, and becoming a significant power both in America and in Israel. I've been experiencing the change in paradigms in the relations between Israel and Israelis abroad, and this is the right way. I remember previous stages and previous expressions by Israeli leaders about the Jewish and Israeli presence in this country. It has dramatically changed. The world has changed, and our attitude toward Jews in the diaspora, including the Israelis, has changed as well. And I'm glad this is the right way to go. In our world now, we have to recognize that people move quickly from one place to another, from one continent to another, and the role you can and actually should play in our life now is very significant and very important, both to you and to us. I'm speaking specifically to Israelis in the diaspora. I have my own attitude and approach to Jews in the diaspora, and I can say a few words about it. But Israelis are living now abroad for 5 years, 10 years, or maybe much longer, should be involved in Israeli affairs. Buji, my friend, mentioned participating in Israeli elections. I had my bill about that. Buji didn't help me at the time, but now he changed his mind. That's fine with me. Let's try and see if it works or not. I'll do my best. I'm not promising that it will go through, but you will help me with your political support in Israel.
With my 2 million
let's try
readers.
it. At least give it a trial and see if it works. Israelis abroad voting in the Israeli election. But otherwise, I would say it's time to recognize that Israel now, I'm speaking out about Israel, Israel has to play much more active role in the life of Jews and Israelis living abroad. It's not only about what you are giving to us, it's about what we are giving to you. Israel is big, strong, powerful, and has a lot to offer. And it's not just about money. It's much more than that. It's values. It's the place we see in the world and the way you can help us. So maybe I can envision now, I hope so, that the government of Israel, with the Knesset, with other policy-making Israelis, and with the media and some other actors in the public arena, will finally understand that Israel has now take a leading role in the life of Jews and Israelis abroad. It's time to make this change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nachman. I don't know if you've heard, but we had a heated debate before on the nation-state law. So if we can get all of you to agree, there's really hope. There's really hope. Barry, I want to come back to you. I want to hear a few more words from you to close this discussion.
So I think that one of the things that we learn from this is how much we really do have in common. And the IAC is a huge part of that. And the Adelsons have done a tremendous job helping to make this thing happen in a huge way. But not only that, also Birthright. But I want to just move to talk about what we should be doing. In other words, there's no problem with having political disputes with each other. There's no problem with being critical. There's no problem with talking to each other, but only if we understand that we're family and that we care about each other. So how do you really create, what should we be doing to create this sense of family and connection? We need to do a lot more about mifgash, about actual encounters between human beings. So for example, there are 100,000 soldiers that have met American Jews on those birthright buses. What are we doing to connect them further to the kids that they have a relationship with? How do we be sure that those American Jewish kids continue to have a relationship with their friends in Israel? There will be so much less conflict if we really care about each other and we know who that soldier is on the other side and what his parents or her parents are going through waiting for that soldier to come home. And there'll be so much less to argue about if the Israelis who visited America know more about our cultural, religious, political life. All of a sudden, a lot of the issues begin to go away. The Jewish Agency has a huge role to play in this. They created a thing called Partnership 2000 many years ago. Actually, they copied what Boston did, I must say, when we created it for the very first time. But when they went on and created a partnership together, you could make that 7 times bigger, 10 times bigger. In Boston, we're dedicating way more money to it, and therefore we have thousands of young children coming from Israel to the United States. Every teacher in Haifa has already been in Boston. Most of the Jewish school teachers of Boston have been in Haifa. This is not brain surgery. This is not a very controversial idea. What we need to do is to take this. What happened at the General Assembly recently was big arguments about big issues. Let's have the arguments. But before that, let's make sure that every American Jew, before they get involved in the Palestinian conflict, look into the face of an Israeli over on the other side in Israel to understand what's in their hearts. Then we can worry about other people, and we should be worried. It's possible to have this dialogue in a civil way. As Stav said so beautifully, we can't let our own political internal arguments overshadow our love for the Jewish people and our commitment to each other. And every one of these things is possible. The GA was funny for one important reason, no mention of the IAC, no mention of Birthright, no mention of people-to-people projects. All of the things that can actually make things different were sort of absent, and instead we were talking about things in the abstract that are not resolvable. Just want to end with one idea. Okay, this is.
If you permit me, after
Sure,
our vivid discussion yesterday, look how calm and nice we are now.
Sure.
Only to say that, it is true, as Deputy of Knesset Stav Shaffir said, we come from a very strong country today, Israel, and she's totally right. And that is why also, although we're very strong today, we would like to stay strong, and that is why we need you to keep us strong and not to weaken us. And when you weaken us, you weaken you. That's one thing. And secundo, a personal thing, something really personal, because it's the end of the day, I think, or the end of the schedule of today. A few weeks ago, I was in America, and I was with an Israeli friend sitting in one of the rows here, and I was looking in the shop, and there was a sweater. And as you know, I have the Israeli flag tattooed in my heart. And that sweater had the American flag. And he said, how can you, Israeli editor-in-chief of the biggest Israeli newspaper, buy a sweater with the American flag? After hearing today these amazing speeches of a vice president and of the governor, I am so happy that I bought this sweater. Thank you very much.
Barry, you wanted to say a few more words?
So I very much identify with what Stav said. We have a state for the first time in 2,000 years, a strong and beautiful state. The American Jewish community is wealthy beyond, it's not that we don't have poverty, but we have wealth beyond measure. We have political influence. We have connections to every level of culture and society. We should be able to do great things. We will not fall apart. We will not lose our children and grandchildren. We have all the resources in the world if we work together to make things work.
Amen.
But the idea that we are in some kind of conflict with our brothers and sisters in Israel is the end of everything. One last quote. This is from Abraham Lincoln in his first inaugural address on the eve of the Civil War. He said, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic cords of memory that tie us all together will swell when again touched, as surely they will be by the better angels of our nature." May the better angels of our nature at the IAC and in the American and Israeli Jewish communities prevail in the long run. I know they will.
Beautiful words to end this discussion with. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you for staying with us, and Shabbat Shalom.
הופה. יפה, התבגר.